Clear, prop. Here comes the run-up.
You see what's questionable. And there's something else on the airplane that's also questionable. Now this is the equipment list. If you haven't looked through this documentation on the airplane, it makes for some rather interesting reading. Maybe some of you have been reading that there are MELs coming down. MEL is for minimum equipment list. Now, minimum equipment list is going to apply primarily to twin-engine aircrafts as it's written up in Part 9130 and 9133 at the present time. However, we as single-engine drivers may be seeing an MEL coming our direction. What that means is that there's a certain amount of equipment that can be broken on the airplane, and there's that equipment that can't be broken on the airplane. Now, as far as what cannot be included in the MEL is that equipment required for certification of the aircraft. Now, on this particular documentation, right at the very top, under that little flag, the little flag says number 1, and then it has some suffixes right underneath it. It says R, S, O, and A. Now, from your left eye, see if you can read the same thing. The R, the equipment, which is written in this little box on or one of the columns on the left side. R is required items for aircraft certification. S is standard equipment. O is optional equipment replacing required standard items, and then goes on to X and what have you. The R is right here after the item, or the O, or the A, or the S. So if R is on there, it must be in your airplane. And the other thing too is it must be working. So if you want to take a look at that little item, that's Part 9130 and 9133 in the apprentice section.
How about those items that have R's on them and then don't have an X after them?
Okay, the X indicates that it was installed in the aircraft. If it doesn't X, if it's not X, that means something else has replaced it. So it'll have an S and an X after it. What you're looking at, I believe, is the altimeter.
Well, I don't know. I see two items anyway that have R's after them and don't have an X.
Okay, then where you find the X, you'll find an S beside that other number. It's not on here. This is like 4 pages long. So the other item is for maybe further back in the report. But they do it list every possible combination of stuff that they're going to put on the airplane. Because if you get back to the rear portion that talks about all the avionics, you'll find that if you have narco equipment, everything under narco is X'd in.
Yeah.
As far as King, nothing's there. So somewhere in the aircraft, the item has been replaced by something else. But it will be there.
Okay.
This is more chicken scratchings with regards to what was done with the engine. This is okay. This has to do with prop pitches. Anytime you change a prop pitch on your aircraft, if you change from one pitch to another and it's allowed by the TC, the new pitch must be overstamped to the prop. So if you've had your prop changed from a 62 to a 63, it should say 63 up here. We came across an aircraft that had a modification similar to this, where we had questions about the prop. Took the prop off, took it to a prop shop, and we asked the man there, what do you think about the prop? What pitch is it? His response was, what pitch do you want? This prop is the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It's got any pitch up and down these blades that you could possibly want. And it wasn't even stamped with the prop. Yeah.
Are they stamped at variable pitch?
That's a bad idea. Now, what you're about to see is an airplane that had an annual inspection in July of this year. This airplane was signed off as being totally legal. It met all the qualifications of the STC as well as the TC of the aircraft. What you're looking at right here are the rubber shock mounts, dynafocal mounts that are on your engines. Some of you have dynafocals, other of you have straight mounts. On the Cheetahs and Tigers, you best have the dynafocal. This is one of the better ones on the engines. As you can see, it's cracked out. All four of these are total junk. This is the best of the four. So use your imagination and go further with that. Now, those of you who have the two-place or know about the two-place, this looks rather familiar, does it not? This is the decal around the fuel filler. Yeah. Right, 12 gallons. Would you like to tell me how much fuel this airplane has? What? Yes.
Lordy.
Yeah. Like that, Kenny? This is the one that's in there.
There's one thing I can tell you about that.
What's that?
Sure as hell no way resembles my STC.
This is the one I called you to talk to you about. Now, this was on the airplane at the time of the engine.
What is that? I don't follow.
All right, what this is, right here, this is the filler neck on the TR2s. Right? This is an extra tank over here that goes down the leading edge through all these lightning holes. This is another tank that has been slid down on the rear side of the spar. Okay, you with me? This is in both wings, but you notice that the total gallons on the placard said 12 gallons. I roughly calculated out what these tubes are capable of holding, and this wing will now hold 22 gallons of fuel on each side. You now have an airplane that holds 40 gallons of fuel in a TR2. There is no STC for this modification. It doesn't exist.
But the modifications
Looks like an abortion.
very well done.
Somebody worked very hard on that.
Oh, they sure did. You bet.
Does it leak?
Yes. It leaks.
See, around the fittings, it leaks.
Now, all this monkey motion you're looking at here, all of this stuff is vents for the tank. These right here are the fillers for the auxiliary portion of this tank. So as you sit here, lovely day, is it? Hit 12 gallons and it starts to run off onto both sides. This is a way to play a real cruel trick on the fuel boy, isn't it? It's like that Volkswagen, they put 40 some odd gallons of fuel in. Anyway, the unfortunate part of this is that this man bought this airplane in this condition. This had an annual on it. This was signed off as being legal by the IA. There is no substantiating paperwork for it. It doesn't exist. It never has existed. Somebody sold this man a real bill of goods.
What happened to the IA?
Nothing yet.
But will it?
If I get real nasty, it will.
Well, what protects the consumer?
Finding out what the airplane has on it, you can ask the right questions. That's what protects you. That's why I bring up the STC. Now, I happened to hear about this in a roundabout way. I was talking to someone else who knew the person that bought this airplane and said, "Did you know he had extra fuel in that thing?" Now, all the airplane came to me for originally was, I want you to replace the windshield, I want you to replace the canopy, and I wasn't too sure about the end. Could you just kind of look at it for me? Well, that's kind of the wrong thing to say to me.
If you want to keep flying.
Yeah. So, if I were to call the FAA over to the hangar right now and show them this airplane, the thing would be red tagged right on the spot. They would collect up the IA's number. They would collect up the mechanic's number. They would collect up the person that owned the airplane. And they would go after them in a bullet shot. The IA would lose its license. The A&P would probably lose his ticket. And of course, the guy that owned the airplane, he probably doesn't have a pilot's license anyway.
Got a question.
Sir.
How come Maynard Crosby can do that and they won't do nothing to him?
I'm not going to touch that.
Well, I don't believe it.
Well, now why should some of the people get away with this and other people, and you shouldn't?
Well, this guy did.
No.
Right now, this guy.
Says if he wants.
No.
The alternative wouldn't it be to
Yeah.
tear up
Well,
all
then you
the...
can't stop this guy. That's not true.
Now, well, the thing is, it gets down to this. Who's going to be the one that blows the whistle? I can go ahead and do it. What I would like to do is write the IA that signed this thing off and say, listen, as one professional to another, there are some items on this airplane that you signed off that are totally illegal. Now, see what kind of response I get back from him.
That sounds good.
If the response is something about, copulative actions with yourself or something like that, I'll say, fine, then this guy's got to be stopped. And I will go to the FAA, but I want to see what his response is first. The man that bought this airplane called this guy, and he told him kind of a little fib. He called the guy that owned the airplane, and he said, the airplane is now in the hands of the FAA.
What? You gave the airplane to the FAA? Oh my God, no! Why? It was a perfectly good annual that it got.
With the phone. He won't talk to him. The man will not talk to that guy that owns it now.
Tony,
You.
was the buyer or was the seller in this deal an AYA member? Were you on it?
Yes. The buyer was an AYA. The person that sold him the airplane was not. So, unfortunately, this man is stuck with a real headache.
Can the airplane be made legal by simply removing the, and putting
Yeah.
it into one tank?
Yep. The thing here, that's going to be a rather extensive repair.
I'm not getting one off this.
Well, we're thinking about doing something at this point, and we're going to see if it works. We've run part of it by the FAA, and they kind of like what they see, and we'll find out more about it later on. I've kind of turned it over to the owner and said, it's all yours. You take care of the problem.
It didn't work.
I have no idea if this thing works or not. I was talking to Kenny about this, and there's a big problem with this one. This needs in the system what they call a header tank. Those of you who have the Tigers and Cheetahs know all about that. That's the one that's right up underneath the strut. Because in certain applications, flight conditions, you'll cavitate the pump. You won't get fuel to it. Kenny's already been through this exercise before, so he knows all about this. He and I exchanged some information on it. So it's not really great. There's a question back there.
Who built it?
The owner of the airplane, the previous owner, not an A&P. Just some good old boy out there in his garage thought, boy, I need some extra range on this little pair of honey. Especially with that 160 in it, boy, I just need to go.
Looks like you welded that in.
What, here?
No, the
not
tank. No, the tank.
Yeah, this right here has been welded. The cap to this has been welded on.
He's a pretty good welder.
I don't think he did the welding.
Is that actually welded to the rib, or is that
No,
a plate
no,
bolted
no.
over the ribs?
That plate is bolted to the rib.
Oh, okay.
In that case, it might be a good
Now, the bad
vessel.
thing about that is that with that amount of fuel in there, 42 gallons on board a TR2, a new engine, basically, sort of, kind of. I'll tell you about the engine in a minute. There was no physical weight of the airplane again. In either case, because it had the Collier conversion, which requires the wing of the airplane with the 12-320 put in 160. And then you've got this extra tankage on board. Lord knows what that thing grosses out at. I have no idea. I really don't. I don't even know how many people it can carry. I'm sure the clown that did this put himself on board, put a passenger on board, loaded this thing up with fuel. Staggered off into the sky.
Probably filled the baggage compartment.
True. Now, the engine that was put into this airplane, that's another neat little story. The particular engine that's in this airplane came out of the Lycoming factory in 1964. I know because I called Lycoming and asked them about it. I gave the serial number, they gave me the production history. I'm not even sure how many hours this engine has on it, though the logbooks, which are second round logbooks, the first set were conveniently lost. So we're starting in on a new set of logbooks, and Lord knows where this came from. But the estimated time on the engine is somewhere around 1,200 hours since overhaul, not since new. I'd say this engine's been overhauled once or twice since 1964. Now the thing about this engine is that, I don't want to look around down here, but right here, you're looking at the valves. Underneath the rocker box cover, it says Lycoming on it. The problem here, this is the push rod housing. This is the top, the spring retainers on top of the valves. Valves down here in the middle. Now when I looked at this engine, since we pulled the exhaust off because there was things wrong with the exhaust, bolts were falling off, things were rattling around. Remember, it went through an annual. I looked up inside, because I usually look up inside the exhaust port anyway, just to kind of look at the condition of the valves. This thing has wrong size valves in it for this engine. This has 7/16 valves in the engine, and Lycoming came out with a service letter, service bulletin years ago, says that these have to be half-inch. 160 horsepower. 7/16 valves running around, but that's the second time I found this on this particular type of conversion. People go out and they get engines and just plop them in. See, with this in here, this engine has a life of 1,500 hours. Somewhere around there.
Maybe.
Yeah. Gets a little frightening, doesn't it? But as members of the AYA, I think you folks should know about this sort of stuff that's going on.
Is the original owner responsible for this at all to the guy that just bought it?
I'm sure if you took it to a civil court, yeah.
I would.
See, I look up inside the exhaust port and I look at the valve diameter, just the valve stem diameter, just long. So this is a small valve. This is something that, if you have the exhaust off, you will just check what this looks like. That's the difference between the two, what we call rotor caps. The one on the left is 7/16, the one on the right, half-inch. Anybody recognize where that might be? Yeah, those are the intake couplings down there by the sump. This is the same airplane that had the annual done in January. This was signed off as being totally acceptable by the IA. Folks, this is striking. Maybe the IA doesn't see this. Now, it doesn't look that weird now. This is on the same airplane. Yeah, somebody dropped this little puppy right on the floor. Put it back on the airplane and said, totally legal. Put it back. Cleveland will say, Cleveland is the manufacturer of this wheel. There you go. This is the outer half of the wheel. Take a look around the rim. Little pieces missing. Chunks out of it. That's kind of a close-up.
Think about pieces missing.
Now, one thing on these wheels, this is totally unacceptable. The highest concentration of stress on the wheels on our aircraft is right here. Right in that little radius area. That's where the bead of the tire seats into the wheel. If you have any severe nicks or scratches down in this area or through this area, the wheel is junk. So if you've watched, or if you know, or maybe even you yourself have done this, of taking the old screwdriver and shoving it down in between there, between the bead and this, and then you've gone this way, fried, you've just destroyed your wheel. The reason being is that when you put a deep scratch or gouge in this area, what happens here is it sets up what we call a stress riser, and it goes into the bead seat area, and then it goes this way. And then things come apart. So there is a proper way of removing tires from wheels. The other unacceptable method is this. I'll break it! I told that to the guys in Cleveland, and they went, "What? Jumping up and down on it?" Well, we're glad you told us that. See, you also destroyed the wheel doing that, because the rocks and stuff start chewing things up.
Have you ever seen one fail with nicks and cracks in like a Tiger?
Not in a Tiger, but I have seen them fail. I've seen them fail on like 182, 172. I know, that's a Cessna. Cessna drivers don't know how to land. That was down in between the pneumatical seals on the engine. Birds decided to nest there, get some nice ones, toasty. Makes a great incubator.
Did they fly this airplane to Van Nuys for you to look in?
Isn't that frightening? You schedule the trucks to take that? Yeah, say it. Schedule the trucks to take that. Just about. Just one other item. On the aircraft, your brake linings are being changed over by the manufacturer. You used to be able to buy those brown-colored organic linings, as they call them, have little metallic goodies in them. Those are no longer made. They're being phased out. Something about asbestos and being carcinogenic or something. Right color. Anyway, the new type of linings that are coming out are what they call non-asbestic organic brake linings. Now, how many of you are aware that there is a break-in procedure for brake linings? Anybody aware of that? Excellent. Okay. Some of you are. For the new ones that are coming out, they're very easy to identify because they look like a charcoal color and have little sparklies on them. It's the best way to describe it. The break-in procedure from Cleveland is to taxi the aircraft at 1,500 feet with the engine at 1,700 RPM, applying enough pedal force or braking force to have a taxi speed of 5 to 10 miles an hour. Then you allow the brakes to cool for 10 to 15 minutes. Then you go out to the run-up area, run the airplane up to about 2,000 RPM and see if the airplane starts to skip forward, or if the brakes hold. If the brakes hold, then the linings have been properly conditioned. If the airplane moves forward at 2,000 RPM, you get to go back and do this little procedure all over again. And you do it as often as necessary. Because what they're trying to do is put a glaze coating on the face of the linings so that they don't wear away. Yes, sir.
We had, I bought some of the very first ones of those linings, brand new chrome disc brakes, and
Took the chrome right off.
ate the chrome for breakfast. Cleveland bought them back, and they recommended that particular set of pads with those brake discs. Their own brake discs with the pads. We followed the break-in procedure precisely. Nothing but grooves in the chrome disc. Took about 4 months to eat them for breakfast.
Well,
Fortunately, Cleveland bought them back.
yeah. I've heard about that from one of the guys in Cleveland when I heard about these new linings coming out. They said, you know, people put it on the airplane and boy, it just took the chrome right off the discs.
Well, did they give you new ones that were chrome?
Yeah.
Then what?
Say what?
What's next? They gave you new ones that were chrome?
Well, they gave me new chrome discs, and we put standard pads on them. discs ended up warping and apparently weren't heat treated. So I got another bearer and I just put straight steel discs on it and bought as many of the old heavy duty pads that I could afford before they phased them out.
I haven't used these yet myself, but my linings are getting down to the point where I know I'm going to have to put them on my airplane.
You won't like it.
Well, they say it's supposed to have a braking effect on this or something like that. We'll see.
Nice grinding.
Did they give you the answer to the chrome problem then?
Not yet. No, it's called manufacturers working on it.
So when your brake pucks wear out, you put them on your chrome, say goodbye to your chrome disc.
Yeah. All right, I want to bring this information up too, especially in regards to the TCs, the STCs. U.S. owners, once again, should be aware of contents of a type certificate data sheet. Just don't leave it up to your friendly mechanic. As you saw, leaving it up to a friendly IA, we have an airplane that's out here that's totally illegal. Absolutely illegal.
What's it going to cost you to get it up to speed? Round figure.
Well, if you're including the tank removal, just looking at 10 right now.
Are you getting people for the day? Aren't you guys getting ready?
He's going to put 10 grand into the airplane to get it back. No, he could. You know, if he doesn't want to put the money into it, he can always put it up on the auction block, or somebody can go by and buy it for parts.
That'll make the difference.
The guy said he had a little nose gear shimmy, and I was talking about the 18 to 22 pound side pull, and we came over to check it. Give it a flip there.
Well, see, it just came off and it was off.
That's not even 18 to 22 ounces. There is no tension on that whatsoever.
Down. 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 Let her down.
I would definitely say that's loose.
And everybody who is complaining is like this.
Well, I'll answer that.
There's no tension on there whatsoever. It must turn easy.
Let's check mine out.
Oh yeah, it goes right around a circle.
See if mine works.
I had mine.
Okay.
I always bring it up too.
Yeah, I got the same problem.
We took it off because we had to do all that rivet job and everything.
I tell you, I want to check something else on his airplane here before I get away from it. I just want to get a shot of some of these airplanes out here that
when we did my mechanic guy put this thing back on with me.
Horrendous cost, let me tell you.
I've only flown it just probably a month like that.
Yeah.
You know.
And
then it came down, so I went and I says, "Hey, this thing is shimming like crazy." He says, "Well, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with it." So he says, "I'll be out," but he didn't come out because when I came here, it did the same.
Here, I'll get it. I think I'll get it. Where's number 40 shop?
Number 40 shop. Should be one laying there at the bench somewhere.
Yeah, I'm on it. There's number 40.
All right. I think we got most of the bugs though, Ken.
Yeah, well, the ones that we didn't get, I'm sure we scared away.
Well, see if you can stop drill it right here.
All right, I'll stop drilling in a second.
At least that'll get me back home.
Yeah.
You need a wind directional finder?
Yeah.
Okay. You wet your finger? You know how to wet your finger and stick your finger up?
Yeah, go ahead and stop drill it.
All right, I'll stop. Right here.
Right there, that's good.
This little crack right there.
That crack.
All right, right here.
That ought to take care of that sucker.
Yeah, I don't think it'll crack any further now. Thanks. Thanks.
Now,
John.
if you want to find out which way the wind's blowing, just lift your finger and stick it
I know.
up.
That's a nice place for my outside air temp gauge too.
Yeah, right.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Number 40.